going to conclude our study in Hamlet and the whole course. I left off last time in Act 2, Scene 2, I believe, and with a discussion between, I think that begins with Polonius, the king dispatching Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Polonius entering, and there's sort of a setup. They're all trying to orchestrate Hamlet's removal from the court. Remember, his father now, or his uncle, who's effectively his adopted father, I don't even know what to say here, is his mother's husband, who's his uncle. Anyway, it's all very confusing for him, is in the position that young Hamlet is a threat to his power, and he needs him removed. He can't say it because, of course, his wife is very attached to her son, and so he has to be very artful in how he removes him. And so he is pulling the strings as a king would, but in a way that is duplicitous in accordance with the character of the man. And Hamlet, for his part, is also trying to orchestrate things. He does have warrant for thinking, just to repeat what we said last time, for thinking that his uncle has in fact murdered his father because his father's ghost has come and told him this. But because his father's ghost is effectively in hell, he has no good reason for thinking that his advice is good for him. And he's worried that something untoward towards him will be happening. So the spiritual intentions of his father's ghosts are a little bit suspect to him. But I think he's quite convinced that his uncle has committed it, but he wants to make sure. And the way he's going to make sure is to put on a play. And the play is the thing we're in to catch the conscience of the king, as he says. So that's the purpose of that. And so what we will find here in Act 2, Scene 2 is, again, a reiteration of the idea of the dramaturge figure, a surrogate for Shakespeare, and an exploration yet again of the importance of drama in teaching. And again, I say this because in modern theater, in entertainment, we tend to not think or hold the dramatist, the writer, responsible for what we see. But in the Elizabethan age, it was not so. And historically, it was not so. There was an expectation of the artist that the drama, what was portrayed, would be moral in its nature. It would be encouraging good behavior, not bad behavior. And the understanding of both is that people by nature love to imitate what they see. That goes all the way back to the ancient Greeks. Plato and Aristotle both discuss this. I talk about it at length in my lit theory class, which some of you will eventually take. And there are responsibilities with that. And also then there are, culturally speaking, a strong weight and strong emphasis on what sort of texts are going to be read and performed and how they're performed, and the same sort of things that would inform political discussions inform artistic discussions. So the idea that we have that entertainment has nothing to do with education just simply is a novelty in the history of Western culture. Everyone in Shakespeare's day believes that the dramatist is responsible for the education of his audience. He's going to delight them, of course, but he's also going to teach them. There's no avoiding it. Impossible, because we imitate what we see. And this is the very reason why the Puritans wanted the theaters closed down, because they were unhappy about what was being portrayed on stage. It wasn't because they were opposed to entertainment. It was because of the nature of what was being taught, they thought was suspicious. There are other reasons that they would have opposed it as well, because they were gatherings for prostitutes, and that led to venereal diseases and all sorts of social consequences that were bad. But primarily it's the teaching, didactic function of theater. And Shakespeare would have taken it very seriously, this role. And I didn't do Othello on the course, I've done it in the past, but Iago, the villain there, is effectively an anti-dramaturge figure. He's a very evil figure that manipulates Othello and brings a man who is the most admirable character in all of Shakespeare's drama to some degree, you could argue at any rate, and brings him to murder his wife, who's the picture of innocence and virtue. A virtuous man, a virtuous woman, all undone by a man who is diabolical in his intentions and pulls the strings, manipulates. Well, he acts like the dramatist then. So the strong emphasis on the responsibility of the artist is just a Renaissance conviction. And it's, I think that hasn't changed. What has changed is our sense that people should be able to express whatever they want, and people should be able to see whatever they want, and there are no consequences for either. And I think it's a highly questionable suggestion, but very common in our day. So I'm going to skip forward, though, and not deal with the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, to say that he's left it. And I want to deal with Hamlet then informing the players. So Hamlet leaves Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's side, and Polonius enters, and then the players enter. So this is Act 2, Scene 2, line 380. Polonius tells him that the gentlemen have arrived that are the players. So, well be with you, gentlemen, says Polonius, and then Hamlet aside to them, hark you, Guildenstern, and you too, at each ear a hearer, that great baby you see there is not yet out of his swaddling clouds. Happy he is the second time come to them, says Rosencrantz, for they say an old man is twice a child. I will prophesy. He comes to tell me of the players. Mark it. And then aloud to Polonius, you say right, sir, a Monday morning, 'twas then indeed. My lord, I have news to tell you. My lord, I have news to tell you. When Roscius was an actor in Rome, the actors are come hither, my lord. Buzz, buzz. Upon mine honor, then came each actor on his ass. Hamlet is not very happy with Polonius for the way in which he is manipulating his daughter, not caring about her well-being, and for the way in which he's trying to play him as the one of the courtiers of the king, trying to orchestrate things for the king's outcome. He's not happy with this, and he regards him as a fool, not in the way King Lear's fool worked, but in the sense that he's just a dumb instrument who thinks that he's very wise. So anyway, Polonius says, the best actors in the world, either for tragedy, comedy, history, pastoral, comical, historical pastoral, tragical, comical, historical pastoral, scene individable, or poem unlimited, Senna cannot be too heavy, nor Plautus too light. For the law of writ and liberty, these are the only men. Polonius acting like he knows something about the arts, and he doesn't. He's just spouting words. And then Hamlet's response, O Jephthah, how, judge of Israel, what a treasure hadst thou. What a treasure had he, my lord? Why, okay. So on he goes, and then the players come in. Line 421. You are welcome, masters, welcome all. Now note that he's speaking in verse, or in prose here. He's lost, there's no iambic pentameter. He's speaking like a common man to them. Remember, this is Prince Hamlet. He's speaking like one of them. And to that degree, he's actually acting, because he is a nobleman and should be speaking in verse. But he drops that here. You're welcome, masters, welcome all. I am glad to see thee well. Welcome, good friends. Oh, old friend, why, thy face is valanced since I saw thee last. Comest thou to beard me in Denmark? What, my young lady and mistress? By lady, your ladyship is nearer to heaven than when I saw you last, by the altitude of a chopine. Pray God your voice, like a piece of uncurrent gold, be not cracked within the ring. Masters, you are all welcome. And then asks, give us a speech, a passionate speech. What speech, my good lord, says the player. I heard thee speak a speech once, but it was never acted, or if it was, not above once. For the play I remember pleased not the million. 'Twas caviary to the general. I assume that's caviar. But it was, as I received it, and others whose judgments in such matters cried in the top of mine, an excellent play, well digested in the scenes, set down with as much modesty as cunning. I remember one said there were no sallets in the lines to make the matter savory, nor no matter in the phrase that might indict the author of affection, but call it an honest method, as wholesome as sweet, and by very much more handsome than fine. One speech in it I chiefly loved. 'Twas Aeneas's tale to Dido, and thereabout of it, especially when he speaks of Priam's slaughter. If it live in your memory, begin at this line. Let me see. The rugged Pyrrhus, like the Hyrcanian beast, 'tis not so. It begins with Pyrrhus. The rugged Pyrrhus, he whose sable arms, black as his purpose, did the night resemble when he lay couched in the ominous horse, hath now his dread and black complexion smeared with heraldry more dismal. Head to foot is now he is total gules, horridly tricked with blood of fathers, mothers, daughters, sons, baked and empasted with the parching streets that lend a tyrannous and damned light to their lord's murder, roasted in wrath and fire, and thus o'ersize with coagulate gore, with eyes like carbuncles, the hellish Pyrrhus old grandsire Priam seeks. So proceed you. For God, my lord, well spoken, says Polonius, with good accent and good discretion. Player continues. Anon he finds him striking too short at Greeks. His antique sword, rebellious to his arm, lies where it falls, repugnant to command. Unequal matched, Pyrrhus at Priam drives, in rage strikes wide, but with the whiff and wind of his fell sword, the unnerved father falls. Then senseless Ilium, seeming to feel this blow with flaming top, stoops to his base and with a hideous crash takes prisoner Pyrrhus's ear. For lo, his sword, which was declining on the milky head of reverent Priam, seemed in the air to stick. So as a painted tyrant, Pyrrhus stood, and like a neutral to his will and matter, did nothing. I'm going to skip over that. And he goes on for another 20 verses. And then Polonius' response, this is too long. Hamlet, it shall to the barbers with your beard, prithee say on. He's for a jig or a tale of bawdry, or he sleeps. Say on, come to Hecuba. But oh, but who, woe, had seen the mobled queen? The mobled queen? That's good. Mobled queen is good, says Polonius. Ran barefoot up and down, threatening the flames with bison rheum, a clout upon that head where late the diadem stood, and for a robe about her lank and all o'erteemed loins, a blanket on in the alarm of fear caught up. Who this had seen with tongue in venom steeped against fortune's state would treason have pronounced. But if the gods themselves did see her then, when she saw Pyrrhus make malicious sport in mincing with his sword her husband's limbs, the instant burst of clamor that she made, unless things mortal move them not at all, would have made milch the burning eyes of heaven and passion in the gods. And then Polonius, look where he has not turned his color, and has tears in his eyes. Prithee no more. 'Tis well. I'll have thee speak out the rest of this soon. Good my lord, to Polonius now he speaks, will you see the players well bestowed? Do you hear? Let them be well used, for they are the abstract and brief chronicles of the time. After your death, they were better have a bad epitaph than their ill report while you live. So, comment on the theater here. What is the theater? It is the abstract and the brief chronicles of the time. It is a mirror of the world around them. It's a reflection. You can read the newspapers every day. If you want to really get a report on the spirit of the age, go to the theater. It's a commentary on it. That's Shakespeare's sense. It is a reflection of the society in its day and a comment on it. Polonius, my lord, I will use them according to their desert. God's bodkin, man, much better. Use every man after his desert, and who shall scape whipping? Use them after your own honor and dignity. The less they deserve, the more merit it is in your bounty. Take them in. Come, sirs, follow him. And then out he goes, and the player that is the lead player here is left alone with Hamlet. And then once they've left, he asks him, can you play the murder of Gonzago? This was all to distract Polonius. Now he gets the play he really wants. Can you play the murder of Gonzago? Aye, my lord. We'll have it tomorrow night. You could for need study a speech of some 12 or 16 lines, which I would set down and insert in it. Could you not? I'm just going to add a few lines. Can you do that? Aye, my lord. Very well. Follow that, Lord, and look you mock him not. Now, my good friends, I'll leave you tonight, speaking to Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, etc. And then after they all are gone, he is left with yet another monologue, and it is quite a monologue. It goes on for 54 lines, 54, 55 lines. So again, and this is typical, monologues are not atypical of Shakespeare's plays, but in Hamlet, they are more extensive and more frequent than in other plays. The internal life of Hamlet is very much a part of our interest. It's not very dramatic in a sense, but his thoughts are really the stage of the play. So in that sense, this is why those of our, from the Romantics onwards, those of us who are interested in human psychology gravitate towards Hamlet, see it as the great play that it is. Whether we're correct in that, who knows? But that is the view. So he says, now I'm alone. Oh, what a rogue and peasant slave am I. Is it not monstrous that this player here, but in a fiction, in a dream of passion, could force his soul so to his own conceit that from her working all the visage wand, tears in his eyes, distraction in his aspect, a broken voice, and his whole function suiting with forms to his conceit, and all for nothing. For Hecuba, what's Hecuba to him, or he to Hecuba, that he should weep for her? What would he do had he the motive and the cue for passion that I have? He would drown the stage with tears, and cleave the general ear with horrid speech, make mad the guilty, and appall the free, confound the ignorant, and amaze indeed the very faculties of eyes and ears. Yet I, a dull and muddy meddled rascal, peak like John a dreams, unpregnant of my cause, and can say nothing. No, not for a king, upon whose property and most dear life a damned defeat was made. Am I a coward? Who calls me villain, breaks my pate across, plucks off my beard and blows it in my face, tweaks me by the nose, gives me the lie in the throat, as deep as to the lungs? Who does me this? Ha! Swoons, I could take it, for it cannot be, but I am pigeon-livered and lack gall to make oppression bitter. Or ere this I could have fatted all the region kites with the slaves awful. Bloody body villain, remorseless, treacherous, lecherous, kindless villain. Why, what an ass am I. This is most brave, that I, the son of a dear father murdered, prompted to my revenge by heaven and hell, must like a whore unpack my heart with words, and fall a cursing like a very drab, a stallion. Fie upon it, foe, about my brains. I have heard that guilty creatures, sitting at a play, have by the very cunning of the scene been strook so to the soul that presently they have proclaimed their malefactions. For murder, though it have no tongue, will speak with most miraculous organ. I'll have these players play something like the murder of my father before mine uncle. I'll observe his looks. I'll tent him to the quick. If he do a blench, I know my course. The spirit that I have seen may be a devil, right? And the devil hath power to assume a pleasing shape, yea, and perhaps out of my weakness and my melancholy, as he is very potent with such spirits, abuses me to damn me. I'll have grounds more relative than this. The play's the thing wherein I'll catch the conscience of the king. So announces very clearly, why is he not able to take his revenge, like the revenge tragedy of Thomas Kyd, the Spanish tragedy? How come? Because he thinks that he's been given advice from the devil. That's the restraint. Because it's clear. So I've rarely seen much, by the way, of the critics speaking to this issue. It's an extraordinary thing. And again, he's in Wittenberg as well. So it's just like, he is a religious man. He believes in the existence of these things. And now he has this spirit who seems to be telling the truth. He actually believes that it is so. And yet he thinks there's a malicious intent behind it all. So he is an intensely, he's come from religious culture, and he is motivated, or rather he's restrained from action because of that fact. That's it. Move on to Act 3, Scene 1. We'll get to that. But note that Hamlet thinks of himself as a man without a role to play. And this is also something we need to recognize here. In the great scheme of things politically, he's lost his father. He's also now been, his father's been replaced by a king, but he's not his immediate heir. He's his mother's son, but is he going to be the heir of, like, how does he act now? They don't want him to go back to Wittenberg, remember? So what does he do? He's sort of stuck. He's got a very strained relationship with his mother. The people may love him, but the king, Claudius, is clearly threatened by him. So how does he act? When you lose your bearings, your role in life, like all of the associations are cut off, like when a divorce happens, it's like, how do I act now? Because we do act in certain situations and roles, and everything in his world has been taken away from him. So how is he to act? And so he thinks of himself as a man without a role to play, and so he doesn't know actually how to act. Of course, he could just kill Claudius. But I think the effect of losing his father and having his mother marry the murderer is very distressing to him. It's not just simply a matter of cowardice on his part. It's an inability to think of how to act properly. And so he is, through the theater, creating for himself a whole new way of living and acting. Sometimes he acts crazily with Polonius, with Claudius, and when he does that, he's concealing his identity. Right? He's playing. He's putting on, as he says, an antic disposition for the purposes of dissembling. But sometimes he is distracted, with his friends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. He might say something meaningful. Sometimes he's in between. He's with Ophelia, and he's guarded for her sake and for his own, because he realizes that she's going to report to her father. On the other hand, he doesn't want to just treat her as nobody, but that he's caught in this, what do I do with her now? Before I think he did have affection towards her, and she likewise, but now they're all players in a play that Claudius is orchestrating, and they can't just act. And she's caught up in it. And he can see that, but she's being a dutiful daughter and doing what her father wants and what her king wants. Terrible situation. So he's trying to find creative ways in order to act without revealing that he's aware that Claudius killed his father. And in the same scene, I didn't read it, but he gets Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to admit that they were sent by Claudius, which actually shows that he has the wherewithal to control the situation. He actually is in charge of himself. So one of the things that this does from the vantage point of Shakespeare is to show that, remember, he's on the stage representing life, but he is showing to some degree his skepticism about our ability to control all of our circumstances. Like on the stage, it looks like we're in total control because everything happens in accordance with the dramaturge's orchestrations and the lines. He gives the players the lines. He says when they come in, when they go out, what they say, and so forth. Seems like total control. But Hamlet, by placing himself in this situation, is making us think about life and the sense that we have very often that we're not able to control all our circumstances. And our noble spiritual nature, which actually I didn't read this passage. Let me go back to 3:13. I think it's 3:13. Nope, it's not there. So I've got my lines wrong here. He's a bit disillusioned with life and with order and with divine providence, for that matter. So even if he thinks that the devil's not manipulating his father, there's still a total disruption of the idea of providential good order in everything that's happened. And that also is affecting him. Let me also, before I come to Act 3, Scene 1, deal with discuss very briefly his relationship with Ophelia. And the question, which I don't think we can altogether answer, but does Hamlet actually love Ophelia? It's clear that before the story began, that Hamlet was made to believe that Hamlet did. Ophelia is convinced that he did love her. That we know from what she said. And he even wrote love letters to her, proclaiming his love. And in that sense, showing his, not only his attachment to her, but a sense of, because again, like his brother said, her brother said, and her father said, Hamlet is not his own man. He's the prince. He can't marry whoever he wants. But Hamlet has been acting as if he could. And maybe he thinks he can't even. Maybe he thinks he can. Maybe that's what he was like before, and now he's had that all taken away. He's realized he has no control over anything. So that is also, to some degree, there. Comment before I continue with my thoughts here?
Yeah, it just seems like, I guess from a human kind of personal perspective, like when people encounter tragedy or crisis in their life, it seems like they begin to question the very foundations.
They do.
Of like the relationships.
Everything.
Everything.
The existence of God.
Yeah.
This is a common response to relational breaches, like divorces, deaths. Yeah. It's very common.
Yeah, and it seems like Hamlet gets to the point where he questions every little thing.
Mm-hmm.
And
every little thing.
Yeah.
Intensely skeptical.
Yeah.
The loss of a child will do the same thing to a couple. If they lose a child, the instances of divorces go through the roof. Yeah. Because they can't handle the grief. Yeah. Sometimes they blame each other or they second guess. What if I did that? It's terrible. So this is just when Shakespeare's writing like this, he is doing so in theater. He's reflecting his view of theater as a mirror of life, but the life's mirror is cracked. There are things that don't seem to fit. We have no explanation for it. And Hamlet, the play, reflects on that very well, in the same way that King Lear did, right? So the senseless death of Cordelia, the virtuous, beautiful figure of virtue and wisdom in the play dies, like even after coming back with France, riding in with the cavalry, looking to save her father from her terrible sisters, manages to get there, and then is, off stage senselessly hanged. And then her father kills the man who killed her. But still, like those sorts of things, how do we reckon with those things as an explanation of divine providence and order and purpose? And what do we learn from tragedy? It's the same topic that concerns the psalmists when they deal with grief and evil, and why do the rich, the wealthy, seem to get away with it? And yeah, and the answer is eventually they don't, but they do for a time, and it is a cause of lament, distress, etc.
For Hamlet's case specifically, it's not just that his father died, but his father was like actually replaced with a murderer.
Yes, and it's also that his mother married the murderer, so it's like like that's the amplification of everybody else's experience. It's bad enough you lose a parent, but then the parent was murdered, and then your mother marries the murderer really quickly thereafter. Like,
do you think of the father as like this symbolic position of the paragon to the son?
well, he's like God in the family. This is the thing. The father represents God in the family.
It shouldn't be surprising that when you replace a loving father with a murdering father, that you turn the son from a loving man into a murderer.
And except that he can't murder, because he would like, yes, but he couldn't do it because of the fear that he had that the devil was actually orchestrating the whole thing. What a diabolical thing. My father is murdered by his brother. That's diabolical. He's got away with it, and he's now the king. That's diabolical. My mother's married him. That's diabolical. And this guy wants me now to kill him. How do I know that this is not a further diabolical turn on the whole thing? So the explanation for his action pretty clear if you think about the circumstances.
He can't bring himself to murder until it's revealed that the previous paragon that has been holding him back endorsed a murder. It, like, endorsed the vengeance.
Right. So he wants God to actually reveal that it is so, because that will allow him to move forward in faith that the universe actually has some sense of justice. However terrible this is, at least justice is being demanded here, not more injustice. But that's what is pushing him. Like, the terrible circumstances are preventing him from acting, and it shows that he's a good character.
He'll discover that vengeance isn't quite justice.
Correct. So all of the play, like it's a really profound interrogation of that. Back to the issue of the love of Ophelia, in Renaissance Platonism, and Shakespeare, you can see influence of Renaissance Platonism on Shakespeare. Both beauty and love are capable of drawing the person who loves the person who appreciates beauty upwards towards God. The ordo amoris, the ladder of ascent, it draws you upward. And Hamlet's love of Ophelia, I think, is genuine, but again, it's been affected by what's happened to his mother and his father as well. And the fact that she's drawn into these political schemes of his uncle and her father just further complicates the matter for him. So I don't think he's thrown her under the bus. He's not getting rid of her, but he is trying to, well, I think he's trying to find a path to rescue this relationship, but it's not obvious how he can do it, because she's like a kite in a storm all around him, and she's there, and he can't stop what's happening. That because the murder of his father is only the first thing. It's now you have an evil man on the throne who can do everything that he wants, pretty much. How do I stop him? How do I protect the woman I love? How do I do that when she is listening to her father as she should and listening to the king as she should? How do I solve that situation? So he speaks of his doubts, but also dismisses them, I think. And let me move on to Act 3. But this is the complications of the play. This is why the play is seen as so profound, and it's so appealing to actors to play it as well. But again, the religious dilemma of Hamlet, I think, has to be the foremost reason why he can't act. It's not because he's, as I said, some of the critics early on, because he's a particularly reflective man. That's not the reason. He's temperamentally incapable of action. That's not the reason. He fears for his immortal soul. That's the reason. That's the reason. That's it. So he's not then like some of the other characters which we've seen already, who are incapable of action because they're loving the philosophical life. They love their books too much. He is actually a Renaissance man. He's capable of action, but he's impeded in his action because of the circumstances. But we've seen that already, right? In The Tempest with Prospero. He loved his books too much. He loved philosophy. He loved studying. He didn't want to get his hands dirty and he let his brother take care of the running of the kingdom. That's not Hamlet. Okay, Hamlet is a Renaissance man. But circumstances have prevented him from acting that way. So Act 3, Scene 1. The court. King, Queen, Polonius, Ophelia, Rosencrantz, Guildenstern, and various lords. And there's a discussion of Hamlet and so forth. And I will conclude with Polonius speaking to Ophelia, and they're trying now to orchestrate Ophelia so that she can reveal who Hamlet is to them. What's Hamlet thinking? Because at the moment we don't know how to act towards him. At the same time, Hamlet's doing the exact same thing to them. We're going to put the king in front of me and I'm going to see what's inside his head. It's all an attempt on both sides. They're both moving in the opposite directions to do the same thing. And Polonius says to Ophelia, read on this book, that show of such an exercise may color your loneliness. We are oft to blame in this. 'Tis too much proved that with devotion, visage, and pious action, we do sugar o'er the devil himself. And then the king as an aside. Oh, 'tis too true. How smart a lash that speech doth give my conscience. The harlot's cheek, beautied with plastering art, is not more ugly to the thing that helps it than is my deed to my most painted word. O heavy burthen! I hear him coming. Withdraw, my lord! King and Polonius out, and now Hamlet comes in. This famous speech. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing end them, to die, to sleep, no more, and by a sleep to say we end the heartache and the thousand natural shocks that flesh is heir to. 'Tis a consummation devoutly to be wished. To die, to sleep perchance to dream. Aye, there's the rub. For in that sleep of death, what dreams may come, when we have shuffled off this mortal coil, must give us pause. There's the respect that makes calamity of so long life. For who would bear the whips and scorns of time, the oppressor's wrong, the proud man's contumely, the pangs of despised love, the law's delay, the insolence of office, and the spurns that patient merit of the unworthy takes, when he himself might his quietus make with a bare bodkin? Who would fardels bear to grunt and sweat under a weary life, but that the dread of something after death, the undiscovered country, from whose bourne no traveler returns, puzzles the will and makes us rather bear those ills we have than fly to others we know not of. Thus conscience does make cowards of us all, and thus the native hue of resolution is sicklied o'er with the pale cast of thought, and enterprises of great pitch and moment with this regard their currents turn awry and lose the name of action. Soft you now, the fair Ophelia. Nymph, in thy orisons be all my sins remembered. And then she says, good my lord, how does your honor for this many a day? Okay, this grand speech. The speech shows, obviously reveals his mind, but shows that, again, the impediment to his action is what comes after, and his fear of hell. Now, before these events had happened to Claudia, to his father, Hamlet Sr., I suspect that he was in firm faith of heaven and confident that God would reward just action and punish unjust action. But now that's all been thrown into disarray. And I think that Shakespeare is very psychologically aware of the consequence of tragedy on a person's life, and he's reflecting it in Hamlet's actions here. And it explains once again his inability to act, and he's dissociating justice from that life afterwards as well. Why would that be? Well, because he's only perceived manifest injustice right in front of him. And he fears what will come should he act. So it's, again, this is part of the whole. None of the speeches make sense in Hamlet if you don't see his concern about what comes after death, and his fear of hell for acting wrongly. So it's a religious play. Modern productions don't pick up on that, which I find baffling. I mean, it's right in your face. It's so in your face that you can't fail to see it. And the confessional scene, the fact that he's in Wittenberg, where Luther, like, it's the Danish, he's a Lutheran. Like, plain. It's as plain as the nose on your face, and yet it's unseen. Why? Again, it's the bias of our age against religious motivations for anything. But they are there for Shakespeare and his age, and there's no doubting of it. And in this case, you can't understand the play without them. So, and I've emphasized this throughout the plays we've looked at, how significant the religious assumptions of Shakespeare are and his age in being able to interpret the actions of the characters. So if you just, whether you believe them or not, whether you're a Christian or not, you have to understand that is the motivation for action. That is the Elizabethan world picture that is present to us here. So when he meets Ophelia after this speech, there's a little back and forth, and he's playing with her a little bit.
She was listening the whole time.
She's listening, perhaps.
Well, didn't her father have her spy on him?
She's supposed to be, but it's under Hamlet, and it's not clear when she enters the stage, because he takes notice of her. So right at the end, at 88, he says, soft you now, the fair Ophelia. He notices her. Maybe she's there behind him and he hasn't noticed her. But I don't know. It's a soliloquy, so.
I read the stage directions being like.
Yeah, but there's no stage directions in Shakespeare's text. Somebody could bring her in at this point. It's not clear. Like, everyone is left. The king and Polonius have left. Ophelia's behind. Maybe she is there. That would make sense to me.
Them being on stage, either not visible.
So she could be, and he just notices her right at the end of it, and she's listened to all this, and then he finally notices her. I think that's entirely plausible, and I've seen it performed that way, that she hears that. So it's not a soliloquy then. It's him thinking that he's on his own. It's a monologue, but she overhears it. I don't know if it matters that much, but when he speaks to her, then he's upset. Asks her if she's honest. Ask her if she's fair. Haha, are you honest? My lord, are you fair? What means your lordship? That if you be honest and fair, your honesty should admit no discourse to your beauty. Could beauty, my lord, have better commerce than with honesty? What are they reflecting on now? The Shakespearean understanding, the ordo amoris and so forth. Of course, beauty reflects truth. So she's speaking as an unbroken girl, whereas he's broken. She is not aware of what's happened to his father. She is aware that his mother has married his uncle, and she could appreciate that that's distressing. She has no awareness that the king has been murdered and that Hamlet is distraught by that. She just thinks, she knows what she knows, which is sufficiently distressing. She doesn't think she doesn't know what he knows and what the audience knows at this point. And then him, I truly, for the power of beauty, will sooner transform honesty from what it is to a bawd, that is a prostitute, than the force of honesty can translate beauty into his likeness. This was sometime a paradox, but now the time gives it proof. I did love you once. What's he reflecting on there? He's reflecting on his mother. I thought she was as well, but now we've proved that actually beauty doesn't lend towards truth. She's a bawd. His mother's like a prostitute. She's prostituted herself to his uncle for the sake of what? Not the truth. But she's not aware, of course, that her husband's been murdered. So he's being unfair to her, but would a young man in his late teens, gone to university, respond like this in an unfair fashion to his mother who's quickly married her? Of course he would. It's dramatically entirely plausible.
Culturally, would it have been considered
unusual? Of course it is. Everyone's commented on it. They're commenting on, wow, there was the funeral and then there was the wedding, and in fact and Hamlet comments, and I don't know if it's in jest or if, I think it's not. The same food that was used in the funeral was then used for the wedding.
Yeah, even if he doesn't know yet that that his father was murdered, there's still
the unseemly haste of the resolution.
I think you were into him already.
Yeah.
It was pretty quick.
Yeah.
There must have something going on.
Yeah. And so everybody's unsettled by this. And then there's the external threat of being invaded on top of it all. So everyone is on edge. I did love you once. And remember now, when he's thinking of Ophelia, he's also thinking about his mother, and he's thinking about fidelity and how much she loves him, which he believed before, but he also believed that his mother loved his father before, and now this. So that she's a casualty of that to some degree. He's become cynical. I did love you once, he said. Indeed, my lord, you made me believe so. You should not have believed me. For virtue cannot so inoculate our old stock, but we shall relish of it. What is our old stock? Nope. Adam. We cannot so inoculate against original sin that, but we shall relish of it. What? The original sin. Should not. Just because I said it was so doesn't mean it's so. Just like his mother. Appeared the paragon of virtue, and look how quickly she fell. How easily. And so then he says, I love you not. Why does he say it? He's hurt. Push her away. Like all sorts of motivations. Because he doesn't trust any woman to be faithful now. So mixed motivations. Is it to protect her? Is it out of anger and hurt that he says it? He's a very complicated character. And then she says in response, I was the more deceived. If you were deceived about the nature of love, I was the more deceived because she loved him that much. Get thee to a nunnery. Why wouldst thou be a breeder of sinners? Goes back to the old stock comment. I am myself indifferent honest, but yet I could accuse me of such things that it were better my mother had not borne me. I am very proud, revengeful, ambitious, and with more offenses at my back rather, than I have thoughts to put them in, imagination to give them shape, or time to act them in. What should such fellows as I do crawling between earth and heaven? We are errant knaves, believe none of us. Go thy ways to a nunnery. Where's your father? Reflecting on sin and the terrible blight of sin. That's what he's thinking about here. So don't, and it's cynical then. How do we stop the original sin? Don't have any more children. Don't pretend that love is going to be part of the ordo or mores that's going to, elevate you to a better person and so forth. The old stock of sinful Adam that's in all of us is so deep in all of us that there's no hope there. That's what he said. Where's your father? At home, my lord. She's lying. Let the doors be shut upon him, that he may play the fool nowhere but in his own house. Farewell. Oh, help him, you sweet heavens. If thou dost marry, I'll give thee this plague for thy dowry. Be thou as chaste as ice, as pure as snow, thou shalt not escape calumny. Get thee to a nunnery. Farewell. Or if thou wilt needs marry a fool. For wise men know well enough what monsters you make of them, you women. You, she represents women here, what you make of them. Go to a nunnery, go and quickly to, farewell. So I don't think he's not directing it specifically at her. She's done nothing wrong, but you, women, propagate the human species, and sin comes all about this. So he is disenchanted with humanity. That's exactly what it is. He's a misanthropist. It's directed at her, so you could say, well, it's just misogyny. It's not misogyny. It's the whole human race which she's disenchanted with, and that's it, including himself.
Since she's heard his self-reflection about death, and now he's telling her that there's no point in fulfilling what has to now been your life's purpose. This is the implantation of the idea that maybe I should kill myself.
Yep, but he's afraid of doing that.
Well, he is, but she's got the idea.
She does. And so now he's introduced the idea into her head, and where will that go? Up to this point, unthinkable for her. Yes.
It's funny too, because it seems like he's talking about original sin, but he's doing exactly what Adam did.
He is.
Blame his wife.
He's blaming her.
Yeah.
Yes. And so and you could even see them as a Adam and Eve pair here, and him blaming her for his actions or his life. Although to be fair to him, he's hardly sinless or the cause of all this. But her response to all this, seeing that he is so spiritually despondent, is heavenly powers restore him. It's actually a prayer in response to it. This is a spiritual overthrow. It's not he's mad. I have heard of your paintings well enough. God hath given you paintings. Now he's talking about cosmetics. I've heard of your paintings well enough. God hath given you one face, and you make yourselves another. Now he's talking about hypocrisy. A hypocrite's an actor. That's what the word Hippocrates is, and that's what Shakespeare accuses the Pharisees of. You're a bunch of actors. You act like you're virtuous when underneath is a house of sin. You're a whitewashed sepulcher. Yeah, Jesus, sorry. Jesus is accusing the Pharisees of hypocrisy, of being actors. He's talking about women now as actors, but actually I think he's talking about the whole human race. By implication, again, we're seeing it expressed towards the women, but I think he's thinking of it the whole, but he is also thinking about his mother. He sees in Ophelia his mother and doesn't trust women to be faithful. That's right. The whole of the human race is faithless. I've heard of your paintings well enough. God hath given you one face, and you make yourselves another. You jig and amble, and you lisp. You nickname God's creatures, and make your wantonness your ignorance. Go to, I'll know more. I'll know more on it. It hath made me mad. I say we will have no more marriage. That those that are married already, all but one shall live, the rest shall keep as they are. To a nunnery go.
What did that second to last line mean? Those that are married already, all but one shall live.
He's going to kill Claudius.
So
he's resolved.
Openly alluding to it right to her face.
Yep.
He's going to take some of that.
Yep. But you to a nunnery go. He's not but the state of he's not just wanting to kill his father. In-law, what do we even call him? His adopted father, his uncle, whatever the king. Uncle Dad. He's not resolving to do that. He wants to rectify everything. The problem is the way he's going to rectify it is there's no more marriage. And those that are married, they can continue on, but you go to a nunnery. It's the opposite of what Luther did, which is to say that nuns and priests, monks, that is an order that's not there in Scripture, that it has no force, and he dissolves those vows and ends up marrying Catherine von Bora and so forth. They have children and so forth. The implications of his thought. Now he's doing the opposite. We'll keep it as it is, but otherwise that. So he's overly involving himself in the orchestration of life.
Isn't it even a little satanic?
Probably, because then there are no more children.
And there's no more children. He's advocating the destruction of the human race, saying that we're totally.
Well, he doesn't go that far, because those who are married already shall live and so forth.
But he's criticized her for being a breeder at all.
Pretty much.
That we shouldn't have anymore.
Yep.
And the ultimate destination of this world is supposedly the marriage of heaven and earth. And he's saying no more marriages of anyone, anything.
Yep. So back to her response. Her response to him leaving now she is on the stage by herself, and eventually after the speech she withdraws, and then I'll move to Acts 3, scene 2. Hers is, oh, what a noble mind is here overthrown. The courtiers, soldiers, scholars, eye, tongue, sword, the expectation and rose of the fair state, the glass of fashion and the mold of form, the observed of all observers, quite down. So remember, this is called the tragedy of Hamlet. This is the tragedy of Hamlet. There are two Hamlets. There's Hamlet Senior and Hamlet Junior. Both of them are referred to in the title, and both are actually part of the tragedy. The loss of a father, who's also a king, the murder of all the treachery involved, but all of these things, because he's the paragon of all these things. Everyone's talking about Prince Hamlet. He's handsome, he's intelligent, he knows how to act, he's a scholar, he's a courtier, he's a soldier, he is the Renaissance man, and he is down. Nothing left of him. He is totally gone. And I, of ladies, most deject and wretched, that sucked the honey of his music vows, now see that noble and most sovereign reason, like sweet bells jangled out of time, and harsh that unmatched form and stature of blown youth, blasted with ecstasy. Oh, woe is me to have seen what I have seen, see what I see. Out she goes. The effect on her is the same as the effect on Hamlet when he sees the loss of his parental relationship. She's seeing the same thing in Hamlet here. Now we'll see what happens to her. He keeps his self-control more or less. She blows apart. She'll go mad. In the same way Lady Macbeth did. Similarities there. Anyway, the king comes in, Polonius comes, and let's go to the Act 3, Scene 2, which I do want to address before we break. Very long scene, and it's important because it is a reflection of the play upon the play. Play within the play, rather. And I just want to remember, he's still speaking in common speech. There's no verse here. He's talking like a man to other men, no rank, but he is speaking as somebody who understands the theater and the purpose of what theater is. So he begins as a director of a play would speak to the players. Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you, trippingly on the tongue. But if you mouth it, like you're overdoing it, as many of our players do, I had lived the town crier spoke my lines. Don't act like you're shouting all the time. I don't know if you've seen performances where people just stand and they're just roaring out loud, and everyone says, "Oh, what a great actor you are!" And you're a terrible actor. You're just loud.
I've been slain.
Oh, and you're just really exuberant. That's not acting. That's what I said. Nor do not saw the air too much with your hand, thus, but use all gently, for in the very torrent, tempest, and as I may say, whirlwind of your passion, you must acquire and beget a temperance that may give it smoothness. Oh, it offends me to the soul to hear a robustious, periwig-pated fellow, so he's wearing one of those wigs, tear a passion to totters, to very rags, to split the ears of the groundlings, who for the most part are capable of nothing but inexplicable dumb shows and noise. I would have such a fellow whipped for overdoing termagant. It out Herod's Herod. Pray you avoid it. I warrant your honor. Be not too tame, neither. So don't be too loud and exuberant and out, screaming and overacting. Don't overact. But don't be too tame. But let your own discretion be your tutor. Suit the action to the word to the action, and this with this special observance, that you o'erstep not the modesty of nature. For anything so o'erdone is from the purpose of playing, whose end, okay, what's the purpose of drama? It's right here. What's the purpose? Whose end, both at the first and now, from the time of the ancient dramatists to this day, was and is to hold as 'twere the mirror up to nature, to show virtue her feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time his form and pressure. Show the mirror up to nature. What does he mean by nature? He means the nature of nature. He doesn't mean like a photograph. He means to show on stage how virtue acts in life. You're showing characters in tragedies that are better than us. Put in a situation so that you can, it's like moral philosophy, but it's put on stage. We're allowed to engage in ideas of justice and beauty and so forth, and it's depicted in such a way that is plausible in the way we understand things. That's why the Bible is presented to us in stories. We can see things being lived out, and we learn from them by imitation. We can imagine in that situation, somebody in that situation acting in the way they do, and we learn from that. Well, this is what he means. So it's to hold the mirror up to nature. The Greek word for this word, which again you'll get in my lit theory class, is mimesis. It's the representation of something that you can't see. And through that, another Greek word, paideia, which is the education of all. In particular, he mentions mirror up to nature to show virtue her feature, scorn her own image, and the very age and body of the time his form and pressure, to show our age what it's actually like, to help us to be discerning rather than swallowing up all the propaganda that's presented to us in the news. Be discerning. See what virtue truly is. That's the purpose of theater. It's supposed to teach us. It helps us to see more clearly. I think that, okay, so now this overdone or come tardy off, though it make the unskillful laugh, cannot but make the judicious grieve, the censure of which one must in your allowance overweigh a whole theatre of others. So you present the theater not for the crowd, but for the discerning in your audience. There you go. So it's not there to get the most bums on seats. Don't play down. That's very good. Don't play down to your audience. Play for the most discerning in the audience, and everybody else is ennobled by it, but the discerning will know, and that's who you're speaking to. I will say the same thing of teaching, by the way. I never teach to the middle of the class, ever. I also never teach down, ever. Yes.
I was going to say, one of my...
Same with pastors. Never never speak to the bottom.
Yeah, that's what because if the goal is to have them grow, like to me, even like for the teaching element in general, like the Ephesians 4 principle is teach in order that the lesser or the younger in the faith would be able to withstand the winds of the world,
yes,
so to speak.
Yes.
And if education always appeals to the lowest standard, then those who are capable of so much more, they will essentially just be like capped, or how do I describe that? They'll basically, you'll impede them from their potential to be great leaders and great stewards of what they have, essentially.
Whatever's true, whatever's good, whatever is true, whatever is lovely, think about these. Yeah. You can't improve people if you have no sense of hierarchy. Some things are superior to others. Mm-hmm. And you have to recognize that adults are superior to children in years, but it should also be in moral attainment. They should be superior. And if they aren't, this is a problem. You can't get at it through the modern paradigm of equality. Equality is the great killer of everything. It levels human nature and makes us all to be the same, which is flatly untrue, and everyone knows that we're not all equal. Otherwise, we would not be individuals at all. Some people are better at sports than others, naturally. Some people are more intelligent. Some people are more virtuous. Just like some kids are just extraordinarily brave. Some people are extraordinary, self-sacrificial. Some people are very humble. These are virtues, actually, and that's just the way they are. But if you just level them all out and act as like, well, let's not pretend. Let's pretend that, like, because I don't want, somebody to be jealous and think, well, then you don't want them to grow at all. You want to praise praiseworthy things, and you want to indict the things that are not praiseworthy. Now, you don't have to do it directly, although sometimes you do. You do the whole thing, the whole ball of wax, but you aim up. You teach to the top of the class.
Yeah, this is the lesson we learned from
Jesus.
From Jesus. I was going to say the people who put Marxism into practice. We learned
yeah, this is Marxism in practice.
If
that's
you
right.
Put the lowest in charge, you don't enable everybody to become wealthy and moral.
No, it kills everyone.
You disable everybody from being.
There's no motivation for being better then, or be more industrious. It's just, it doesn't work.
Actually,
because it's against human nature. You've told people, that's right, don't work harder.
There's something wrong with you.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're bad almost. By being good, you're being bad. By being more virtuous, by being more industrious, whatever you're thinking, you're different than everyone else. We want you to act all the same. Well, this just goes against human nature. Yes. Finally, one last comment, and then I move on.
Just quickly, just in terms of the equality aspect, it proves the fact that people are trying to obtain equality. It proves that equality is not present, and the whole narrative of well, we have to seek out equality and that everyone is equal. And it's well, if you have to keep pushing that agenda, you're proving the fact that that's actually not realistic. It's not actually present. And even just in social dynamics, people oftentimes act differently according to the peers that they're surrounded with, simply on the basis of people recognize their standing in comparison to other people. And then once in a while you get that person that doesn't, and they stand out like a sore thumb because they don't actually know their place, so to speak.
Education you give grades in education, and you graduate. You have grades. You give grades on papers. You have grades of students, and you graduate. And a gradus is a step. You keep going upwards. Upwards is not just it's another year. It's that you have attained something and you've moved in your understanding and hopefully your character to be superior. If you're not doing that, why do it at all? There's no purpose to it whatsoever. You could just, there's a lot of very wealthy people right now encouraging people not to go into university, to say university is a waste of time and so forth. I couldn't disagree more in one sense, and I understand in another. Higher education has been ruined. Education has been ruined by Marxists, among other things. Not just by Marxists, but by people who've thrown down the Christian faith and don't see the value and the command in Scripture to educate. But that doesn't mean that education is ruined because people that are in it are ruiners. There's no salvation without human improvement. There's no salvation. This is part of the gospel. It's part of the gospel. You can't dispense with education. You have to fix it then. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But remember right at the outset, he said, and this was a quote, I think it was from Troilus and Cressida, Shakespeare, and this was, I think this is Ulysses speaking. So Odysseus, the wise Odysseus, he says, remove hierarchy, untune that string, and hark what discord soon will follow. And what is it? It's political anarchy. But you will say the same thing about the individual. You remove the concept of justice, the hierarchy of virtue, and so forth. You remove that, again, everything just falls apart. Shakespeare is an intensely hierarchical thinker. So is his whole age. They do not believe in the French revolutionary ideals of equality, taken as sameness, imposed through statistics and measured by statistics and so forth. Anyway, those things needed to be said. I apologize for the digression here, but I want to reiterate this, what I've said all along in how we read this, because we live in cultural Marxist, under the influence of cultural Marxist teaching, and it has to be addressed. So back to this, and he says, oh, there be players that I have seen play and heard others praise, and that highly, not to speak it profanely, that neither having the accent of Christians, nor the gait of Christian, pagan, nor man, have so strutted and bellowed that I have thought some of nature's journeymen had made men, and not made them well. They imitated humanity so abominably. They don't see this human nature. They're making a lot of loud noise on stage. I hope we have reformed that indifferently with us, sir. Oh, reform it altogether. Okay, so this is what is remarkable here. His life is in ruins. He can't act because of what's happened, but he wants to reform the theater because he thinks by reforming the theater, he's reforming education. By reforming education, he can change the future. If you want to make a better culture, you have to begin with education. Preaching the gospel, evangelizing, conversion, yes. But if you believe in the providence of God, in a better generation, then you start with the young and you focus on the young. So he says, oh, reform it altogether, and let those that play your clowns speak no more than is set down for them. For there be of them that will themselves laugh, just set on some quantity of barren spectators to laugh too. Though in the meantime, some necessary question of the style be then to be considered. That's villainous and shows a most pitiful ambition in the fool that uses it. Go make you ready. He wants total reform of the theater. He can't fix Denmark, but he can fix the theater. And that will fix Denmark. That's effectively what he's come down to anyway. So then the dumb show that follows. I think maybe I should take a break here and we'll look at the dumb show, and then boy, I'm gonna have to be on my bike to get through the rest of it. But we'll break here because I have gone on.